Testing. Blah, 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 blah.
Ready, set, go.
It's time for the Coach Amy and Coach Liz show.
A podcast for endurance athletes by 2 athletes, 2 coaches, and a physical therapist.
We are your hosts, Coach Amy
And Coach Liz.
coming to you from Kansas City. Hello, people. Good morning from Coach Amy and Liz. We have to start off this podcast talking about last week because our goal last week, was to record this podcast. Mm-hmm. How did it go?
It was a dumpster fire.
It was a disaster. And I got to tell you, it started off a lot like, Liz, have you ever seen me in that?
No.
That's rare to see me that way, but I used to be that way a lot more often.
Well, good for you.
Which was right. Yeah, getting through PT school my first year was a little bit like that. Being around me. Okay. So over time, I've developed some strategies, and it's much like...
You're calm now?
I have places I can get myself to, and I harness what I've learned with running and over the years, and it's that same kind of place of calm and you try to get that calm and relaxation, tamp it down. But when we started out first, before you even arrived to do podcasting, right? David said to me, this is my husband, he says to me, I'm worried for you and Liz. And I was like, oh my God, my heart literally sunk to my stomach because I was like, what? Was our last podcast really sucky poo? What are you saying? And he's like, well, I don't think you guys have anything in the can, do you? And I was like, well, no. And he's like, well, that's not good. So then I was like, and then you arrive.
Oh my God. Well,
and what happens?
We were coming off the holidays.
Yep.
And the holidays are a special time. Mm-hmm. And I feel they require a lot of energy in a lot of different ways. And I think we were both freaking exhausted.
Yes. We were exhausted, not recovered from the holidays.
Yeah.
And then we loaded our slingshot. I did that for that day. That I loaded it so in terms of we have podcast meeting, and then directly after that I've got this thing, and then directly after that I've got this thing. So I loaded my day up.
Oh,
really? Yes. So that did not help. And I'm the type person, if you have you ever played those games with that hourglass thing? And you tip over the hourglass?
Oh, yeah, the timer.
I can see you doing really well.
Oh, no.
No?
Well, I'm bad at games. The hourglass thing, I'm just I get so stressed about the games because I suck at them, and I'm just like, screw it.
Okay, so you just kind of let yourself go with who cares? Okay, so we play this game. We play lots of games in our family, but there's this one game that has the hourglass thing. And literally this was everyone has to make a list of one of the topics was make a list of all, within this time period, all of the countries in Asia.
Ooh.
Okay? But this is but there's lots of different topics with this game. It's super fun. But they flip it over, and all I can do is watch the sand going out.
Oh my gosh!
I cannot think of one country in Asia. Okay, geography is not my strong point. My family will tell you it's the worst, but I couldn't come up with one. I literally was watching the sand. My throat's closing up. I'm okay. And this was happening during our podcast last week when we were trying to work. I'm watching this. Look at this do you see that? It says 8:45 right there at the top. Yeah. I watched that thing tick forward, literally the entire time. I could not focus.
That is interesting.
Because I'm we haven't even started recording today yet. We have nothing in the can. This is what was going through my head. It's completely cray-cray.
But it's such a good real-life example. I feel like that kind of stuff, I do that stuff all the time.
Right.
And I think most people do.
It's a good example of how, we set up our goal that we had to record that podcast last week. And at least in my mind it was. And then I had to get all these things done this day.
Yeah. And then at the end, we had to just call a timeout. We just had to walk away from it.
Yeah, we walked away. We recorded, we had some little things that we could throw in there and release.
But, I think that is just, because I can get myself so wrapped around the axle, and it just completely impedes your ability to get anything done that you need to get done.
Right.
Right? And it's just all you can focus on is how you're not getting it done.
Right. That's That's exactly what happened. Okay, so what we did was we took a recovery week and calmed ourselves down, and now here we are.
We are like meditative yogis this morning.
Yeah, and no.
As you can totally imagine. You sound so calm.
With 3 cups of coffee but what is our goal today? Our goal is to talk about goals. And we want to talk about some of the mistakes that we see with goal setting, especially at this time of year, but just in general with goal setting for endurance sport. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the mistakes that endurance athletes make? Well,
I've noticed, so we're recording this in January, and my favorite thing right now is that I open up the Training Peaks platform where we communicate with athletes, and there's just like a brain dump of races in their Training Peaks calendar. Like they've just picked anything that looks like it has a cool t-shirt or a cool medal, and like there's 15 races in 3 weeks in their calendar. Which is apparently fine.
And then you also get that email.
And we get the email.
This is my goals for the year. And there's like not only some unrealistic possible goals, but also so many things that you want to try to change at once.
Some ambitious goals, yeah. But you also, this time of year, I feel like we get very hopeful about our pace goals or like qualification goals. So there's lots of things about, we haven't even really gotten into training for the year, but you'll get goals about like a certain time or, a qualification that may not necessarily be rooted in the training. Sometimes.
Yeah, rooted. Yes. Like it's probably, maybe it's long time away.
It may be a long time away.
Yeah, more of a long-term goal. But we also see unrealistic jumps in race distances. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we have this, the person who maybe last season just completed their first 5K. And then we're going to jump up. I would like to do now, my next race is going to be, very next season is going to be a half marathon or a full marathon.
Mm-hmm. What? Yeah. Yes, I see that with triathlon, like going from sprint distance to a full Ironman is really not it's not as uncommon as you would think.
Right. Within like a couple seasons or within that same year.
Within a season.
Right.
Or sometimes they pick Ironman to do as their first, which, people do it, right? So we're just saying examples of, this is our dream world of like, it would be so great if you took a little more time.
Yes. But you don't see these unrealistic jumps in swimming distances, do you?
No, I've only had one person ever tell me they want to swim the English Channel. And they were like a collegiate swimmer. No one ever comes to me and is like, I just want to really go after the swim.
Right. What are some other examples of mistakes that endurance athletes will make?
Well, a big one, I think, sometimes, because, our years ebb and flow and our goals ebb and flow. And I think, sometimes we take breaks for, maybe you're just burned out. Maybe you have a baby. Maybe you're taking care of a sick parent or your kids get busy or whatever. So you've taken, a pretty substantial break from your training. And then you decide that this upcoming year you can go back to it and you want to pick up where you left off your previous time when you were super fit. Forgetting that like how much work it took to get super fit and what it will require to actually get there again. And so you just expect your body to show up and do what it was doing maybe 2 years ago when you PR'd your 70.3.
Right. And so then I might show up with a goal of like, all right, I want to do another 70.3 right now, and I want to beat that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, it's easy to think that, and it's because I think you get super fit and you forget what it actually takes to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another mistake we see is not honoring our body. Maybe we're battling a chronic injury, and we're not taking that to account with our goals. And we're not being kind of honest with ourselves that this injury is a part of. It needs to be considered in our goal.
And I think newer athletes. Well, not even just newer athletes, but okay. Let
rephrase.
All of us,
exactly.
I think it's. We sometimes can be overly optimistic about how healed we are in our process and what the comeback will look like.
Yeah.
It's. I still do it. So
these are the mistakes that we see endurance athletes make, but I think it's good to ask like what are some of the reasons why do we make these mistakes?
Yes.
What are some of the factors that are influencing these mistakes? And one of the things I see is that there's a pressure either internally or externally that, oh, my friends are doing this race, or I'm seeing this on social media and wanting to join that bandwagon. It's joining the bandwagon effect. And
well, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing at all. I think for a lot of people, like, sports is an outlet, and you connect with, it's certainly great socially. So that isn't, the issue at all. I always tell my athletes, my job is to make sure that, your goals are in line with your training, or your training are in line with your goals. So if your goal is to be social and do it for fun, that is reflected in like what you expect, your finish time to be, or that kind of thing. So if that's your reason and that's your goal, that's great.
Yeah.
But you don't get to like move your goalpost and suddenly like decide that, you signed up because your friends are doing it, and then you sort of half-ass your training, and then you show up on race day and think that suddenly we're going to PR. I mean, that's a really hard place to be. So I feel like my job as a coach to be like, sure, if you want to do it socially, that is beautiful, and that's going to reflect your finishing goal.
Yeah, and also that needs to be realistic. If you've never run, like say you've only run a 5K, and your friends in your group are training for a marathon, it might not be realistic, even if it is for social and fun reasons and a completion goal. It still might not be realistic to go with them to do that full marathon.
And I see that a lot, especially because people get really excited and we'll have a big group doing Ironman, and sometimes people want to do that, but they're just not ready for it. And so there are ways around that. I mean, those people, even if they're doing a race that's a little bit longer than you're ready for, they need training partners. And so you don't have to go out for their whole run. They probably need a training partner at the very hardest part of their run. So you can go out and run your 3 miles at like the later part of their miles for their longest run. And like you get that camaraderie, and you're there for them. You're really contributing in a legitimate way to them being able to get across the finish line. So there are ways to contribute and participate, even if you're not biting off the whole elephant or whatever.
So maybe what your goal is that I am going to participate in some of the training with these people, rather than the goal having to be I have to go and do that race. Exactly. Maybe I go and support that race and go and cheer on, and
that's what builds the community, because then then when it's your time to get to do it, they're going to be really excited for you. Yeah. Right. And so it builds, and like anybody who's trained for something big and scary knows how much you need people there to show up for you. Yeah. So, it's a fun.
Yeah. And I have to say, I'll have these Reds come in. Your Reds was training team, and they'll come into the clinic and they'll be like, oh, Amy, you have to come do, whatever it is. It's, I don't want to say Ironman, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I'll be like, oh my God, that would be so fun. Is there a half Ironman option? No. Then no, I'm not going. Like I'm not going to just do a full Ironman because the group is going. It would be lovely.
Oh my God. But no. I will say it is hard as a coach. Like you get the momentum going, and I really have to watch myself and make sure that like the people who are signing up for the event are ready for it, because it's so fun.
It is.
Okay,
what's another reason we make these mistakes?
I think kind of going hand in hand with that is that I think sometimes people legitimately don't understand that they're doing too much too soon, or that time goals aren't realistic, because that's something you learn over time. And especially, again, it's not just if you're new. Like, I just think legitimately sometimes people don't know.
Right.
Right.
And that's the job. That's where when you have somebody who knows what they're doing, a coach to help guide you and make those objective decisions. There's another goal that people will, there's this thing about like, I want to complete 50 states, running a marathon in all 50 states by a certain time. By the time I turn 45, or by the time, whatever, or just complete it during my running career. Whether it's that or achieving a certain number of races in a certain period of time, and whether or not this is an internal goal or an external goal, like this is what your friends are, either way, it's the feeling that you should do something, or that you have to do it because you've set this long-term goal. I think that's one of the reasons we make mistakes, is because we feel like we should, or we have to.
For sure. And, I think some of that too, like you get into sort of a rhythm and it becomes your community and it's what you've always done. Right. So it's like, that's just what you do. And you're not really thinking about if it fits your life for that year. And then, one that is really big, and I saw this especially with COVID, is that you already signed up. And so you've already, like the financial commitment's already there and you're already invested. And so it's really hard, especially, with COVID, you could defer. And so what ended up happening was interesting with COVID is that a lot of people had signed up for races and then they'd gotten deferred because of COVID for like 2 or 3 years. And so then they came out of COVID and they had this like really monstrosity of a race, like either a half or a full Ironman, after just going through 3 years of COVID. And then they had this thing on the calendar. And so there was no real thought about like, is this a good time for me? Am I ready for it?
Yeah,
like,
choice,
did my life get blown to shit during COVID? And now I have like, 140 miles I'm supposed to go do, and I paid for it, so I'm going to go do it. And, I think a lot of us did that. And that happens in a smaller degree, like in normal life. But I think that's something we can all relate to because it's expensive, especially triathlon.
Yeah.
I mean, good gracious.
Well, just that thing in your mind that you signed up for, that you've made this commitment to yourself. But there's also the commitments that we've made to someone else.
Yes.
Too. Like I promised I would go help you do your first marathon or something like that. And the why, that is one of the things that contributes to us making a mistake that doesn't align with ourselves.
So interesting. I met with these two athletes a couple weeks ago, and one of them is really gung-ho to doing like a 70.3, and the other just has had some real struggles and is just not really, is not at a place that it feels to me like 70.3 is a good decision. And I can see that dynamic playing out where there's just, it can be very, very difficult to look to your friend and say, this isn't something I'm going to do right now. And, it's hard to say you're not going to do it. And then I find that instead of like looking and saying, this is what I can do, so I can come out and train with you for the last 15 miles of your hard bike ride or your last 3 miles of your long run, it's just like, well, I'm not going to do any of it. Or I'm going to totally ignore the whole situation, not acknowledge any of it, sign up, and then have this huge guilt spiral because I'm not actually doing the training and it makes me insanely anxious. And it's on my calendar and I've paid for it, but I'm just going to stick my head in the sand and not do any of the training. And it's like an oncoming train that you have to deal with that makes you an anxious basket case.
Right. Not to mention, though, the fact that your training partner who, and your teammate and your friend and everything doesn't want you to do any of that.
Exactly.
If you just said, I can't do it, they'd be like, that's okay. Because nobody wants that for their friend to come and overexert themselves or have all this anxiety.
They do not. And you know what? If you think of you're doing a race and you you have a race and it's going to be hard, would you rather, how much would you like to have a friend say, honestly and clearly, I can't do that race with you, but I'd love to show up and get in like the last part of your training rides with you and the last part of your runs with you. Right. And if you still have that bond, and then it's better for everybody. Yeah. And it's amazing to me how incredibly difficult that is for people.
It is. And again, this can create difficulty setting up our goals when we have these different things outlying that are causing.
And sometimes we're not aware of them. So I feel like this podcast is just to sort of raise that awareness.
It is. It's exactly why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk. We've talked about the mistakes that we see, some of the reasons why we make these mistakes, and there's a whole lot more out there, reasons why, but that's some of them. But there's also some factors we need to consider when we're creating goals. And let's just talk about goals for a second, because those are like, I like this analogy, that our goals are like the roots of a tree, and they need to be really strong. They are laying a foundation, and all our training is going to support those goals.
Yeah.
But those goals need to be realistic in the first place, and it can be very hard to assess these on your own and be truly honest with yourself about them. And it's very helpful to have an objective person, like a coach, like Liz for me, to help you make sure that those goals are realistic. And I think it's good to ask yourself these questions. Do your goals fit your current lifestyle, your athletic age, and your health status? And we mentioned all of those factors in our 3-part recovery podcast, but we're going to revisit them today and look at them through the lens of creating goals. Mm-hmm. So Liz, let's start with that first one, our current lifestyle. What do we mean by that?
Well, I think this is a big one that gets real missed, because so one of my favorite habit gurus, James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, says we must create room for our habits to exist. And so the habit we're talking about here is training and exercise and setting your goals. And so looking at your lifestyle and deciding if, are you able to make room in your lifestyle for the training to exist? Because if not, you're just going to keep bumping up against that. And so, when you're thinking about if you have room, like, do you actually have the time to train? You need to consider your family, kids, job. Have you just gotten a promotion? Did you just lose a job? Do you have the time? Does your family support you? Do you have the financial resources, especially for triathlon, because it can be very expensive. There are ways to cut costs, but that's a real consideration. And then the thing that gets sort of tricky is that people, they're like, so I have the time available, but instead of asking if you have time available, do you have energy availability? Like, are you managing your energy, not just your time?
Yeah.
Which is a huge one and a very different question. As a good reminder to all, that Amy, you have a really physical job, right? And so, like, you may come home after work and you may have 2 hours of time you could exercise, but you've just been treating patients for 10 hours.
Yeah.
It's a very physical job. Like, that's a real different...
Yeah, the energy is on low.
Yeah.
The gas tank is on empty.
Yeah.
Or
like the time might be there, but the energy is...
Exactly.
And that's very real. I think people get really down on themselves, but that's a real factor in the equation.
Yep. And then we talked about lifestyle here. Mm-hmm. What about athletic age? This is the number of years in your sport. And we talk about this in our recovery podcast. Let's review what it is. This is the period of time when our body becomes more durable to handle the load of the sport versus our chronological age, like how old we are.
Yeah.
And that incorporates a lot of variables. It's talking about our cardiovascular development. So usually our cardiovascular system develops pretty quickly with consistency.
Huh.
Okay. It does decline with chronological age, by the way, but it comes pretty quickly compared to like our musculoskeletal system, which is our bones, our muscles and tendons. Those need a lot of time to develop to the load. And it can take years for that body system. Yeah, you're going to say something.
Well, I just wanted to make that really clear. So the bones, muscles, and tendons need time to develop to handle the training load. Like, to make that clear, that's like your body's ability, like when you go run and every time you land, it's your body's, like the more time you spend running, the better your body absorbs that pounding without getting hurt.
Right.
Right? And that's what we mean when it takes time.
Yes. Where with swimming, maybe it's not, your load is not as, going to be as much. That might come up, might come to you a little quicker.
Yeah, they're different things.
They're different things. Yeah. But then that leads us into the component of neuromuscular development. Mm-hmm. So that is not our muscles, bones, and tendons. Well, it is, but it's the connection of our brain, our nerves to that, the wiring that is going to help us with our form and our efficiency. So that's years of practice. And that assumes that you're practicing it correctly and not, letting your feet drag on the floor of the pool while you're swimming. Doing that for years is not going to develop efficiency. So the athletic age for swimming might be a little bit less than the actual number of years you've been doing it if you've been doing it incorrectly. Same with bike and run. But it's not just the physical. So it's not just like our cardio, our muscles, and our neural development, our wiring. It's also our street smarts, because our mental experience in handling, training, and races, all of that is also something that has an athletic age.
Yeah, because you learn so much from the doing of like how to handle it, how to mentally get through the tough spots.
Yeah.
How to not get through the tough spots when you're not supposed to, right? Pull back.
Yep.
That's a lot. Yeah. It's a huge part of it. And so how do you calculate your athletic age? So again, we're talking about how long you've been consistently doing a specific activity. So how do you kind of figure out where you are in terms of your athletic age for something? And I think a good example of this is like, Amy, if we look at you when we started working together, and you'd been running for decades, so you had a ton, like you had a much an old athletic age.
Hey! No, but that's true.
But it's true.
Over 30 years of running.
Yeah, right. So your body was super durable. You knew a lot about how to manage the run, et cetera, et cetera. But with swimming, that wasn't the case. Like swimming's pretty new to you. And so we were started with really basic things. So it's almost like you're zero, like you're learning how to breathe and how to get your face in the water and, all of the things that you have to do to set yourself up for swimming. And so that's just an example of like, those are two, like you're an athlete. You've been an athlete for a long time. Athletic age for running is old. Athletic age for swimming was very young. And so then you approach your goals for those, individual activities differently.
Yeah, and we have to be honest about that age. Like if you've taken long breaks from the sport during that time period, or you've had long periods of have you been consistent, or have you had periods of half-assed training? Because that's what I mean. If you could dabble in a sport for 5 years and think that your athletic age is 5 years, but that does not equate to the athletic age of being consistent in a sport for 5 years.
And that is so important, because if you think about like the reason your athletic age matters is because what you get from that is like how durable your body is for a training load. Yep. So you're making decisions about that. It doesn't matter if you've dabbled for 5 years, but you've gotten like 1 year's worth of experience. Well, then that would reflect the goals you set, right? It's very different than if you've...
And I just thought of something else too, because you could be training consistently for something, but maybe you don't have a lot of experience racing.
Yeah.
And then you go to race and you realize like there's a lot of stuff that goes into the mental of the racing too. And just having experience racing, there's that athletic age for that.
Well, and a place that I see that a ton is so interesting, is when I get people, especially like swimmers who are like collegiate swimmers.
Yes.
Or even high school swimmers. And they, they've really know how to swim in the pool. They've got that nailed, and they expect that is going to translate to open water. And I mean, it is. And it's not, sometimes it's not only that they like, that's a whole podcast in and of itself, but the open water is very different, not just like in terms of all of the environmental factors, but like what you do with your stroke, what your paces are going to be, how you navigate around other people. And then it's interesting because they think they've got it sort of mastered, and then sometimes you'll have panic in open water, and that's a real issue. If you've never had any experience with panic in open water and you get in for your first race and you think you're going to lick it, and then you get pulled out for panic, and that creates many times years of mental work to get out of that, because you don't have any skills to deal with that panic moment. So that's a really good...
That's a good example of that kind of race experience.
Yeah, and you have the physical athletic age, but like...
But not
all the
race.
other paces. Yeah.
Yep. Woo! I'm glad we got that in there. Lucky you all. No.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. We're full of ourselves today. Okay. So let's talk about what is a realistic athletic age example. So like, let's just assume that we have consistency, we've had proper recovery, we don't have any of these outside factors that cause issues like injury or whatever. I would like to give an example of like what's realistic in terms of going from, okay, we've done our first 5K, and then our long-term goal is to run a marathon. Realistically, if you're considering all of these things, it should be about 3 years of consistent training.
Yeah.
And what would be a good example in the world of triathlon?
I mean, I'm thinking of that song, like, dream, dream, dream. And I'm imagining all the people listening to this that are looking at their radio, like, just rolling their eyes right now. But if I had my dream, I mean, if you start off at a sprint and, like, you want to do, like, an Ironman, 3 to 5 years, I would love. Like, it could easily be longer, but...
Right.
It's often shorter.
It's going to be different for each athlete.
It is.
It can be done shorter. Can it be done well shorter?
Can you survive
right.
with your limbs intact? People do, but...
People do. So let's talk about... So we're saying, okay, is your goal realistic for... You're going to go through your goals. Is it realistic for your lifestyle? Is it realistic for your athletic age? Whose phone is dinging?
I don't even have mine up here.
Ding, it's got to be mine. Hold on, please. Okay, so that was like in the old TV sets when it would be like pause for technical difficulties.
And you got the rainbow screen?
Yeah, okay. So that just shows our age. Okay, so let's consider whether or not the goals are realistic in terms of health status. So Do you have an injury? This is one of the questions that we're going to ask regarding health status. Yes.
Injury, physical or mental.
Right. Because we could have
like mental health is just
mental health
important.
issues are really important to consider. That's part of your health status. So, for example, are you recovering? So, do you have an injury? Are you recovering? Maybe you're recovering postpartum. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've had some changes in your body. So, this would be changes in health status would be like weight changes, hormonal changes, your chronological age, other health diagnoses. Perhaps you've had 20% of your meniscus removed. That's me. The meniscus is the cushion in your knee. That's going to make a difference. So you might have realistic, achievable goals for your athletic age and lifestyle, but you're nursing that spot that just won't heal. So contrary to popular belief, endurance training does not help your injuries heal. So adding a race to the calendar does not make your injury suddenly heal faster. You've got to be... Oh, wait, she's going to interject.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm absolutely 100% positive. These are the people I see in the clinic. So be honest with yourself. I know you have this as well, but I also have for my runners that I'm coaching an intake form, right? And it asks lots of different questions. Your age, how long have you been running, blah, blah, blah. But we also ask for injury history and how many times have you had that new athlete that says, no injury history, none. But then once training is underway and pain and injury starts to pop into the training peaks and the athlete says, oh yeah, I have a history of chronic plantar fasciitis. I had it last season, but I took time off.
Oh my gosh.
So I didn't think it was going to be a problem. I mean, I get it. It's very easy to lie to yourself and be hopeful that it won't play a part.
People just don't know.
And people just don't know. But
it's
so important for your coach to know. And if you don't have a coach and you're making plans for yourself to know, you can change and personalize your training that takes into account that history of injury. It doesn't mean you can't do it. You're not injured right now, right? But you've got this history of it. Because we can take steps, you can take steps for prevention and to avoid recurrence. And it makes a difference in how you're the goals that you set, but also how you line up that training. It must take that health status into consideration.
Well, I feel like I could write a book called The Secret Lives of Athletes. Like the things they don't tell your coach, Not even always on purpose, but...
Right. Well, it even happens in the clinic, too.
Oh,
so
yeah, it's not on purpose.
Just not even with, like, athletes. So you'll ask them, you're asking all your subjective questions, in injury history for whatever reason. And... no. But then as you get going with this person, they're like, oh yeah, I did break my toe last year.
Yeah.
Or, and they're like, oh yeah, well, it makes a difference. So it's not unusual.
And it's not on purpose. It's not.
It isn't. It's not trying to withhold something from your coach
It's not.
or yourself.
But that is also, when, with your coach, when they ask you to log stuff, part of that is because that's the stuff we're looking for. It's like the things that people don't know they're doing necessarily.
Right, that pattern.
And so it's like, and it's our job to see that so that we can modify training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Liz, you have an example. Let's go through some examples. You have an example of an athlete that you're working with that really shows how athletic age takes a role in our goals.
Yeah, this is super fun. This is one of my favorite things that happens. Like you could, as a coach, you can see somebody kind of progressing through the different stages. But I have a gal, we probably worked together, 7 or 8 years. And when she first came, she was like really brand new to definitely to triathlon and endurance sports and kind of, fairly new to sports. She really couldn't swim. She had a lot of health issues that we were tackling. And, over 7 years, she's the best goal setter I've ever worked with. So that's why this has gone so well. That's props to her. But over 7 years, we've tackled like one thing at a time, very intentionally, very specifically. Again, props to her for that. And at this point now, she's done, multiple 70.3s, and she actually just finished her second Ironman this year and has just done an incredible job with it. And as we've gone through that, like our overarching goal for her has been, no injuries and to be able to complete the race. Like completing the race was a huge goal given where she'd come from, right? So we weren't focused on necessarily time goals except that we needed to make the cutoff, right? So there are very important time goals for that reason.
Yes.
But our goal is really like to progress in sport, no injury, and to make the cutoff and be able to complete the race. Well, fast forward now 7 years, and we just got to have a conversation about now her body is really and her mind is really ready for some much more aggressive training where we can set some time goals and we can push out of the comfort zone in ways that we haven't been able to before, and do some training that is like really way beyond just like, we know she can complete it. And so now she's physically and mentally ready to like tackle some goals that really took us 7 years to be ready to do. And it's so fun because now I get to, set different goals in her training than we never ever gotten to do before. And and she's ready for it, which makes it super fun. And it's a very different way of training. So it's fun for her because it's like all this new stimulus gets to be in her training plan that wasn't there before because she wasn't ready.
Things related to more performance goals.
Yes. Like in improving not just completion and not just injury prevention, which of course are always the fundamental goals, but like now some actual like performance goals related to like some times and that sort of stuff, which is, she's worked really hard, but it's so fun to get to see that.
Yes.
And they're not hurt.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is so fun.
And the reason she can do this is because she's been consistent with that training over that 7 years. So her athletic age is truly that 7
She is a completely different person now.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Which is so much fun. And it's so hard to do. So she's a fun example. But, if you struggle with that, like it's really difficult to do. Yeah. But it's worth it, man.
Yeah. Yay. So then let's give an example of when our health status changes. So that's me. Big sign.
You have a great example.
Arrows pointing to me. So if you haven't listened to some of our other podcasts or follow me on Instagram or anything, you might not know, but had a lot of changes this last year in health. So diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which affects the joints, all my joints. And it's one of those things where you do too much, your body is going to revolt. So it's finding that balance there. But then there was also a torn meniscus. We had surgery to remove part of the meniscus. So a lot of changes. Yeah. Okay. And it took a whole year to just get back to where I could run on, I think it was the last few days of the year. I logged my longest mileage, which was a 6-mile long run.
Good for you.
Okay. And then my fastest mile of the year I got to do. But that fastest mile was slower than my half marathon race pace. Okay. So it's like, I didn't go out there and do, that's hard to take.
Again, because that is really important. So it was your longest run of the year. It was your fastest mile of the year, but your fastest mile was slower right now than your normal half marathon pace.
My normal half marathon race pace.
And
or even training pace. Really. So that's a hard pill to swallow, right?
Yes.
It's regardless of my athletic age, this health history change, this health status change, it has to impact what my goals are coming up now.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, oh gosh, we got to run 6 miles consecutively. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can do that a bit faster pace than I've been able to do for a long time. Okay. Yeah. So what does that mean? You be my objective person.
Okay.
What is going to be my realistic goal just for running based on this?
Yeah. And so one, you're going to celebrate your victory. Right? Because it's really hard when you're in that situation. Right. And so I think it's so exciting.
Okay, Chuck did that. Okay. Announced it to the whole world.
I know. But it's great, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, if I was looking at that as a coach, we're not going to look at increasing the distance and the intensity at the same time, right? So what we would look at is either, perhaps your next goal would be able to run you could stay with that 6 miles, but at some point be able to run 1.5 or 2 miles at that faster pace. So maybe gradually work to increase the pace for increase the intensity for a longer duration.
Yeah.
Or you might work up to start inching your way towards 7 or 8 miles, but you're not going to go out and try and run all 6 miles at that new intensity or go out and run 10 miles, right? You're going to pick one thing to increase the load. which is either the intensity or the distance, and keep progressing like you have.
Yeah.
Right? You're not injured and you're making progress. So, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Right? So
and,
just keep...
Yeah, and it's just like, there's so many goals align with that. So that's like, okay, what would be that's like sort of my running goal in terms of like pace or distance, but then there's also this goal not to re-injure myself, right?
Absolutely.
And then there's this goal like, what is the long-term goal is not going to be to run marathons again. I've got 80% of my knee cushion.
Yeah.
So my goal may be the farthest I'm going to go train for is a half marathon. So all of these things are different,
and that
because
I think
of my health status.
is like a super long-term goal, and I think that depends on your smaller steps, right?
Right.
So you see how it goes, and that's the roots for your tree, right? Because you're
Right.
going to do these smaller things, you're going to see what's actually happening in your training. And those are the roots that we were talking about. That's how you make rooted, grounded decisions for your goals.
And we can't rush those.
No.
There's no Miracle Grow to add to the root
There's
system.
not Miracle Grow.
Unfortunately. Okay, so let's go to our, we've given an example of athletic age and setting goals. We've given an example of health status. Let's give an example of lifestyle. So I've got a good one for this one.
Oh boy.
I had an athlete, come to me last year, and her goal was to qualify for Boston. Okay, it was not an unrealistic goal based on her performances. She was absolutely 100% capable. It was not a stretch at all based on her previous marathon times and her training paces and all of those things to be able to achieve that. Sure. It was not a stretch at all. Because you've got some people where there's a little bit of a stretch, a big stretch, and an absolute unrealistic, right? Yeah. This person could do it. Let me tell you a little bit about her lifestyle. She's a mother of young children. She was a teacher training during the school year. And teachers after the pandemic, things are cray-cray for them. Okay,
it's insane.
It's insanity.
It is a very hard job.
It's very different than it used to be. She lives in a remote location. We're talking far, far away from really good, specialized healthcare, and also just terrain, making it difficult to train outdoors.
Well, and when you say far away, you're talking 3 hours to...
We're talking 3 hours to major city.
Yeah.
In all directions.
Yeah.
Like just living on the top of a little
mountain. It's not like an inconvenient 45-minute drive. No,
it's not. No. And this person also has an injury history also that we have to take into account and does not have access to, or close access. We're talking 3 hours away from someone who would be specializing in sports or run specific physical therapy, for example. So this is a good example of somebody who is lacking many of the lifestyle issues that we've talked about. Lack of time, lack of energy, and lack of resources. Mm-hmm. And then that injury kind of started to layer on, and then we didn't have the physical therapy and access to that we would need to be able to help her. So she was unable to qualify this time, but that is okay.
Yes, it is okay.
Okay.
Yes,
considering all of the challenges.
Yes, I tell my athletes because to varying degrees, I feel like this is a very common scenario, and I just, running and triathlon are not going anywhere. They will be here for a long time.
Yep.
And, when it's a good time, you can come back. So like the judgment and it can be a mess in your head around stuff like that.
Right. Despite the desire, the will, even consistency towards something.
And the realistic possibility.
The realistic goal setting. The stars have to kind of align on the day as well. So, okay, let's recap. Do your goals make sense? Are they realistic?
For your current lifestyle.
Yeah, and considering all the other factors. Mm-hmm. And are they tailored to you?
Yes.
Your person. Okay, we have down here, next time we're going to talk about, and this is what we wanted to say, and I said too, we are not going to put ourselves into an effing box.
No.
Because we've decided it's not good to tell you guys what we're going to talk about next time, because then it sets up more stress. It's not good towards our goals.
No.
It's not realistic to set that up for ourselves. David pointed that out. He walked by listening to us talk about it, and he's like, He's like, tell everybody. Share with them the experience that you're going through, because it relates to what we're talking about.
Oh, sure.
Here,
I mean, because this is hard. Podcasting is hard.
This is hard, and we never know if we're going to set up a meeting and we're going to meet next Friday, and we're not going to have a gazillion other things that are going to be thrown in our way and make it difficult for us to talk about that topic right then for you. So we're not going to tell you what we're talking about next time. You're just going to.
Big mystery. The big mystery. Tune in.
You're just going to have to wait and see.
Tune in.
We would love to hear your comments. And one of the ways that you can share your comments is by going to our website, the Coach Amy and Coach Liz Show.com. We want to hear what you guys have to say about goal setting.
Thanks so much for listening. And remember,
We are in this together.
Until next time.